Chapter 2. Satan attacks Job's health. So this is where the tables get turned a bit. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came along to them. Satan also came along them, among them, to present himself before the Lord. Man. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where have you come?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro, from walking up and down on the earth." And the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil?" It's literally identical to chapter 1, in case you didn't catch it. He still holds fast his integrity. Now it's shifting, playing off of chapter 1. "Although you incited me against him to destroy him without reason." Then Satan answered the Lord and said, "Skin for skin." This is interesting because I've never heard anything confident on this. The best I've heard is that this is some kind of playoff of eye for an eye, which makes sense. I just find it interesting because it seems like a textual inconsistency, and I wonder where exactly it came from. But skin for skin, all that a man has, he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand and touch his bone and flesh, and he will curse you to your face. So last time, you can do whatever you want, but you cannot put a hand on him. This time, Satan is saying, well, you need to stretch out your hand, and you need to touch his bone and flesh, because then he will curse you. Skin for skin. All that a man has, he will give for his life. And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, he is in your hand, only spare his life." So now what you have on a deeper level is you have Satan negotiating with God, and in a sense, winning. Because a negotiation starts low and becomes more intense until one person gets more of what they want than the other. And that's, in a sense, what is happening. First, God said, no, you can mess up his life, but you cannot touch him. This time, God's like, all right, you can touch him, but don't kill him. So we have a negotiation going on. The scene reminds me of the scene in V for Vendetta when Evie gets thrown in the dungeon. I don't know if I've ever seen that movie. Being the uncultured person that I am, especially after hearing about it for many, many, many years. I don't know why I've never watched it.
You gotta watch it, man. That scene is really important. It's a Job scene.
Okay, Kat, if you're still listening, remind me. I don't work tomorrow, so maybe we can watch it tomorrow. I got it, yeah. All right, I'll try to remember this too. When Evie gets thrown in the dungeon. Okay, mental note taken. Alrighty, so only spare his life. Only spare his life. Last time, don't touch him. This time, touch him, don't kill him. So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with loathsome sores from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. The Hebrew word used here is the same used to describe the 6th plague on Egypt in Exodus 9. So just interesting, contextually, because if I remember correctly, we get more of a description in Exodus 9 on the function of the swords. You get more, it's more visual, I guess. You can visualize it better because there's more descriptive terms. Here you don't get that. So if you read Exodus 9, 9, and 10, same thing, same word used. So you get a little bit more of an understanding of what was actually happening to Job. A single sore also afflicted King Hezekiah in 2 Kings 20. The term can refer to a variety of illnesses. Scripture includes examples of sores that would heal, Leviticus 13:18, and sores that would not heal, Deuteronomy 28 and 27. And it is interesting if you read through any of that. So he's got these sores, and he took a piece of broken pottery with which to scrape himself while he sat in the ashes, which is not great. The sat in the ashes thing, too, is kind of interesting. So in Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Jonah, the same term expression gets used. Sometimes as a sign of mourning, which is interesting. It can also indicate that Job is now an outcast socially, and therefore is sitting in a trash heap outside the city. I don't like that one as much, because I feel like the other times this term or terminology gets brought up, it does seem to be connected to mourning more, and contextually it makes more sense. I don't think we have any reason to believe that Job is for some reason now sitting in a trash heap outside of the city. We don't have any reason to believe that. We do have every reason to believe that he's mourning. So to me, that makes a lot more sense, but just kind of interesting. So he sat in the midst of the ashes. It's a way of expressing that. Then his wife said to him, "Do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die, Job." Some of the most savage words written in the Bible from a woman, namely a wife, to her husband. Curse God and die, Job. There's a lot of interpretations here, but I want to read this one. Job's wife speaks only here. She is mentioned one other time in Job 19. While her exclamation that Job should curse God reflects that the Satan figure, the prediction is going through. She acknowledges Job's integrity, which is good, using the same language, interestingly, that God used in the beginning in verse 3. So the same way God described him, she describes him, which is good. Good track so far. Are you still persisting in your blamelessness? Are you still holding fasting to your integrity? Fast to your integrity, depending on translation. This is an exact repetition of the phrase that God used to describe Job in verse 6. Curse God and die, Job. This is somebody's comments on it, not mine. May reflect her desire to see her husband's misery end. I think that's a very positive outlook on what she's saying. Job himself wished for death later, so that hasn't happened yet. She instructs Job to curse God, perhaps thinking it will lead God to kill Job and end his misery. I think these are very hopeful interpretations. Maybe true. Maybe true. I think it's a stretch, personally. His wife seems like she's not on the right track right now. But he said to her, "You speak as one of the foolish women would speak. Shall we receive good from God, and shall we not receive evil?" In all this, Job did not sin with his lips, which is just adding to the point of God defending him. God said a thing about Job. Job has continually, thus far, proven God right in the face of Satan. Everything Satan thinks has so far been wrong. Job has been a great business card for God. He has represented God properly, very, very well. He's stood by everything. He's held fast to his integrity. He will not curse God and die, bitter, foolish woman. He is going to hold fast for now. One thing here. You speak as one of the foolish women would speak. We've talked about this before, but in Hebrew, the term for fool, naval, it's not just like stupid. It's not just what I assume most of us would picture when we think of fool. It also is in reference to immorality. So other places in the Old Testament, it's used in a moral context. We don't use it much in English today as a moral, like, descriptor. Fool is like a goof. Fool is somebody who's intellectually not with it. Fool then could be that, but fool then also could be somebody who is behaving immorally. So it adds even more to it, especially within the direct context there. Her telling him to curse God and just die. Now, Job's three friends. Job is the ultimate badass. That is a valid description. Listening, love scriptural readings out loud. Oh, Heidi's French. I forgot. Heidi, I remember that you're French. You should be impressed. I don't remember a lot. It takes me a lot of weeks to normally remember things. You should feel very special. Now, when Job's three friends heard of all this evil that had come upon him, they came each from his own place. Eliphaz, the Temanite, Bildad, and Shuhite. Shuhite and Zophar, I don't know how to pronounce this one here. Ghost, you know, Namathite? Is it Namathite? I'm so terrible with
lost.
And
what verse?
it's 11. Very end of 11. Last word of 11.
Namatite?
Right? It's namatite. Okay.
Tight, yeah. It's not thite or tight. It's like an in-between thing that we don't pronounce in English.
Okay.
But it's sense. Like tight. Just say tight.
Yeah. Our English would be namatite. Okay. It appears to me to be in vain, daring boldness for a worm man to assert that the seventh day is not the Sabbath of Jehovah thy God. Oh, I definitely missed something. Graves. Good to see you, sir. I'm super late. Boss came by and had to talk with her. Not a good excuse, man. Never a good excuse. All right, so all his friends are coming. All his friends for now. They made an appointment together. Oh, actually, no, I wanted to read this. Hold on. So, the Temanite, a city in Edom associated with wisdom. Interesting if you care. There's a reference in Jeremiah 49:7 where this location is talked about, and it's the only place that I'm aware of where we're able to geographically link it to something, to anything, because so many of the locations in the Old Testament are just poof, turn into nothing, because we have nothing to base them off of. Bildad, we'll come back to. Shuhite. The Bildad comes from a distant but unknown location. The term Shuhites may suggest a connection with Shua, one of the sons of Abraham, and Keturah from Genesis 25. And then Namatite. Zophar is from Naamah, whose location is unknown. Naamah is listed as a female descendant of Cain in Genesis 4. Which says Zillah also bore Tubal Cain. He was the foreigner of all instruments of bronze and iron, the sister of Tubal Cain and Naamah. It's the only other reference that I'm aware of, and I think the connection is loose, but it's there. They made an appointment together to come to show him sympathy and comfort him, friends coming around Job. And when they saw him from a distance, they did not recognize him. They raised their voices and wept, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads towards the heaven. Again, just weird mourning. Weird to us, mourning. And they sat with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights. Customary, very normal. You read that all across the Old Testament for mourning, 7 days, 7 nights. And no one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his suffering was very great. This was probably because they were mourning, and you weren't to speak during mourning.